We'd invite all who would care to join us in a recitation of the Lord's Prayer, followed by a moment of silence. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. It is now 7 o'clock. Shelby City Council meeting is called to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Be seated, please. Roll call, please, Mr. Carl.
Mr. Robb. Mr. Roberts? Here. Mr. Gates? Here. Mr. Martin?
Here.
Mr. McLaughlin? Here.
I'll now entertain a motion to excuse Councilman Robb.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Martin and a second by Mr. McLaughlin to excuse Councilman Robb. Discussion. Mr. Gates?
For the record, do we know the reason for Mr. Robb's absence?
I believe the email that was sent out that he was going to be out of town on a trip, and I guess there was some attachment to this trip that it had been delayed by COVID several times, and this was either use it or lose it. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Martin?
Yay.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yay.
Mr. Roberts? Yay. Mr. Gates?
Nay.
That motion passes. I now entertain a motion to dispense with the reading of the journal from September 20th, 2021.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Martin and a second by Mr. Roberts to dispense with the reading of the journal from September 20th, 2021. Discussion. Roll call, please.
Mr. Martin?
Yay.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yay.
Mr. Roberts? Yay. Mr. Gates?
Yay.
That motion passes. Now comes the time for public comment, or if there's anyone present who would like to make public comment to council, we invite you to come to the podium, state your name and address, and make your comment. Is there any public comment this evening? Has anyone received any public comment by mail or email that they'd like to share this evening? All right, if not, we'll move forward then to reports from standing and special committees. Community and Economic Development Committee, Councilman McLaughlin.
We did not officially meet, we did not have a quorum, and so there's no report tonight. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Move on then to Public Works and General Operation Committee. Councilman Robb is not here, so Councilman Roberts, I believe you.
We also did not meet for lack
Okay, did not meet for lack of quorum, so no report. Okay, thank you. We'll quickly move then to reports of city officials. I'll do my mayor's report. I do want to thank everyone for their prayers and well wishes in regard to my recent total knee replacement surgery and recovery. I want to thank Mr. Gordon for handling the role and duties of acting mayor in my absence, and Councilman McLaughlin for running our last council meeting. Modern technology enabled me to work from home and ease back into the typical mayoral duties whilst I was engaged in therapy and occasional doctor visits. As of now, I'm spending more and more time at City Hall and attending to business there. Looking ahead, this Wednesday, we will enter into negotiations with IUOE Local 18S, Units A and B, at City Hall. So that is on the horizon. And then due to some scheduling conflicts, we'll be meeting with the FOP on the 20th of this month, beginning negotiations. So that's sort of my report in a nutshell. Are there any questions or comments in regard to my report? All right. If not, we'll move forward then to Mr. Brian Crum, Director of Finance.
Thank you, sir. I was also on vacation for a few days over the last couple of weeks, so nothing, just like everybody else. Nothing too spectacular to report, just normal duties, prepping for the union negotiations and tax collections have been coming in very well, and so I really don't have anything notable to bring up tonight.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Crum? All right. Move forward then to Mr. Eister, Law Director.
Thank you, Mayor. Routine business from the Law Director's Office as well as the acting mayor position, so nothing to report to council.
Thank you. Questions or comments from Mr. Eister in that regard to his brief report? All right, move forward to Mr. Geis, Project Coordinator.
Thank you, Mayor. Just very brief too, finishing up our paving program, and we'll be starting lead service line replacement as soon as materials arrive. That'll be going on this winter, and planning to get the downtown enhancement started early spring as soon as we can. So lots going on besides that, but that's all I have tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Geis. Are there any comments or questions for Mr. Geis in regard to his report? All right, we'll move right into new business. We have on the agenda an annual conference, and the Councilman Gates attended on behalf of the city, so Mr. Gates, I'd like to take it from there.
Mayor, thank you. I mentioned earlier, I'm not sure everyone heard it, that 2 years ago I took 7 pages of handwritten notes. It's only 3 pages this year, so I'll spare everyone the 4 pages worth of notes. The first session at the AMP conference was the National Public Power Organizations panel, and included in that was Joy Ditto, who is the president of the American Public Power Association. She talked that the public power is found in 49 states, Hawaii being the state where there is no public power. The city of Shelby belongs to APPA by virtue of its AMP membership. AMP pays for all of its members' membership in the APPA. She said there's a lot of uncertainty at present on the national level, especially dealing with climate change and the regulatory environment. The next speaker was John DeStasio. He is president of the Large Public Power Council. These are, I think, 25 of the largest public power organizations in the country, and AMP is one of those. He talked that cybersecurity is a major concern. That is not new to us. We've talked about that among ourselves. He had a good metaphor that public power is built upon a 3-legged stool. You remove any one of the legs and the stool falls over. The 3 legs are affordability, reliability, and environmental sustainability. The next session was the state of the power market here in the United States. U.S. crude oil production is rebounding. The prices collapsed last year as a result of COVID. People weren't driving, and so gasoline prices went down because no one was buying gas. The drought, the severe drought in the West is impacting the large hydro projects out there. Now, conversely, all the rain we've had this year has been beneficial to the hydro plants on the Ohio River. The dams exist to facilitate navigation, and if in times of insufficient rainfall, the gates of the dams are closed, and the water does not go over does not go through the hydro plants. That's not been the case this year. So the hydro plants were operating at a greater percentage of their capacity this year than in the past. There is natural gas generation is holding despite the twofold increase in prices. There's a problem with the coal supply chain. There have been many bankruptcies of coal companies. transportation issues with rail, and specific coal requirements. You know, not all coal is created equal. And so if, for example, when the city of Shelby was generating, our plant, the boilers were designed to burn high sulfur Ohio coal. So, you know, the boilers are designed for a particular kind of coal, and it's not just, you know, one can't easily switch, you know, from one type of coal to another. The good news he had is there's plenty of natural gas below the ground. He estimated 100 years worth. But then the question is, can we get it out of the ground to market? And of course, that has to deal with pipelines. He talked, I thought the interesting part of his program was talking about ERCOT in Texas back in February, where they're, by and large, Texas is not connected with the rest of the national grid. The problem is the cold snap was predicted to be at 34 degrees. It ended up being 7 degrees and was much longer than predicted, so there was a massive generation outage. Gas, coal, nuclear, and wind all underperformed. And the problem is that no one is really stepping up in Texas, as he pointed out, to be responsible. The facilities there were not weatherized, as they are in the Northeast and elsewhere. And he said this was a repeat of an event from 10 years ago. So, you know, it happened 10 years ago. One would have thought they would have taken steps to correct it, but they didn't. And 100 people died as a result of that massive blackout in Texas. Public power systems did step up, and they did what they could to alleviate the problem, but the problem was so vast that there was little they could do. On the federal legislative update, we're hearing what's going on here. The infrastructure bill, the budget reconciliation, the debt ceiling were all items that were mentioned at that time. One interesting program that I did attend was on electric vehicles. The introductory paragraph for this session said, by 2030, it's anticipated that 50% of all new cars and light trucks sold will be powered by electricity. Now, there's no citation, so I'm not defending that. I'm just reading what's printed here. But what the presenters there said that local systems need to think about are public chargers, which we already have. We need to think about rate design, line extension, education and outreach, and dealing with our stakeholders. People who buy electric vehicles are going to want the ability to charge at home. Now, one of these presenters has an electric vehicle and mentioned that he just could plug his car in his garage at home, and overnight it only charged to 75%. And the vehicles, he said, they have about a 300-mile range, so you can see that's a significant reduction. So, and I had shared this with Mr. Ensman in a conversation. So, there's things that we might want to think about. Obviously, the optimum time for a person to charge a vehicle is at night. So do we want to have demand meters? Do we want to have a separate meter? There's a multitude of things to think about there. By and large, friends, that takes care of the notes that I had for the session, but I do have something to share. There were any number of awards that were presented at various times during the two-day conference, and the city of Shelby received one. We received a Transmission Distribution Safety Award presented to the Shelby Division of Electricity and Communication for 2021. So at this point, I'd like to present this to Mr. Ensman.
Here, here.
One could never get enough safety awards. Mayor, that concludes my report.
Well, thank you. A lot of interesting facts here, and see how, as these things unroll in the future, where we plug in. Every pun intended. All right, any other new business to be brought before council this evening? And if not, we'll move forward to unfinished business. Again, the future use of the Main Street Fire Station, there's no movement on that topic right now. The Bride Park, the baseball field, again, I think upon Councilman Rob's return, we'll have an update on that for sure. Anything else unfinished that comes to mind to be taken care of in this part of the agenda? If not, we'll move forward then to legislation. Mr. Crum.
Ordinance number 26, 2021, approving the editing and inclusion of certain ordinances as parts of the various component codes of the codified ordinances, approving, adopting, and enacting new matter in the updated and revised codified ordinances, repealing ordinances in conflict therewith, and declaring an emergency.
I move that the rule requiring that an ordinance be read on 3 separate occasions be suspended. Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Gates and a second by Mr. Roberts that the rule requiring the ordinance be read on 3 separate occasions be suspended. Discussion? Mr. Martin.
Just, what's the reason for this needing to be an emergency?
Mr. Gates.
Mayor, that's in section 5 of the ordinance, spelled out in great detail.
Any further discussion? That section 5 spelled out.
It says
Any,
something.
any further discussion? This is on the rule to suspend. Roll call, please.
Mr. Martin?
Yay.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yay.
Mr. Roberts?
Yay.
Mr. Gates?
Yay.
That motion passes.
Move the ordinance be taken up and passed. Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Gates and a second by Mr. Roberts for the passage of ordinance number 26, 2021. Discussion. Roll call, please.
Mr. Martin?
Yay.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yay.
Mr. Roberts?
Yay.
Mr. Gates?
Yay.
The ordinance number 26, 2021 passes.
Resolution number 65, 2021, authorizing the mayor as Director of Public Service to join the Bee City USA organization.
Move the resolution be taken up and passed.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Roberts and a second by Mr. Martin for the passage of resolution number 65, 2021. Discussion. Mr. Gates.
Mayor, this is a great piece of legislation. I want to thank you because I know this is something near and dear to your heart and something very worthwhile. Mayor, I ask unanimous consent that I be added as a co-sponsor.
It's been expressed by unanimous consent that, that Mr. Gates be added as a sponsor. Are there any objections? Seeing none, will be corrected and include your name. Any further discussion? If I may, if it would please council, Councilman Gates is right. This is something that has been a project that has been in the making for some time. But I do want to give kudos to Mr. Ensman as well. Mr. Ensman and Ms. Ribbon really worked hard in these last several months to bring this piece of legislation to the table. So I share that gratitude with Mr. Ensman and Ms. Ribbon. Any further discussion? Mr. Martin.
Well, the only question is this going to be the first purchase on our city credit card, or paid by check?
Mr. Brown.
We've had a few purchases already, but
Oh,
we
okay.
might just pay this by credit card. Give you something to do.
Very good.
Mr. Martin?
Yay.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yay.
Mr. Roberts?
Yay.
Mr. Gates?
Yay.
Resolution number 65, 2021 passes.
Resolution number 66, 2021, authorizing the mayor of the city of Shelby to enter into an agreement to adopt a new Section 125 flexible benefit plan and volunteer benefits provided by American Fidelity for the employees of the city of Shelby, Ohio, to be effective on January 1, 2022, and declaring an emergency.
Move the resolution taken and passed. Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Martin, and a second by Mr. McLaughlin for the passage of Resolution 66, 2021. Discussion. Mr. Gates.
Thank you, Mayor. When Mr. Crum was looking for sponsors, I was glad to do this. It's, gives just a little bit more for employees to consider. The last page where it says trust subscription agreement and application for medical expense reimbursement coverage. It reads, as an employer, the undersigned hereby subscribes to a particular agreement in its present form or is amended, and hereinafter amended, known as, and there are 8 different trust references. My question is, which one applies, would apply to us, and what does it say, what does it require?
I will pass that one off to Mr. Crum, who's not involved in this.
That is a good question. From what I understand, there's no cost to this program in the city.
Right.
And essentially, we give them first rights to offer their various services to the employees. So from what I understand, they will explain these different trusts to employees. Well, I think a lot of them are, we probably just have the Public Employees Insurance Trust on the list at the top. But it's just their boilerplate contract from my understanding. So that they can offer their various products to the employees. Does that answer your question?
Mr. Gates.
Well, I would agree that the one the finance director appoints to is probably the one that applies, but I'm not comfortable saying that the city, subscribes to a particular agreement when we don't know what that agreement says. So with that, I move to refer the resolution to the Finance and Personnel Committee.
Yes, Mr. Crum.
Just so you guys know which happy to
A point of order.
Oh,
A motion has
Yeah,
been
let's do
made.
the motion, yes. Last second. We have a motion, we need a second then to refer to the Finance and Personnel Committee.
I'll second that
Okay.
for discussion.
Okay. We have a second then by Mr. Martin to refer to the Finance and Personnel Committee discussion. Mr. Crum, Mr. Martin? Mr. Crum?
Just so you guys know, and the reason this is being passed by emergency is this, they have to enroll in the plan by, I believe it's November 1st, in order to be effective for January 1st, 22. So we could move it to the Finance Committee and then vote on it at the next meeting if you so choose. It would just be a little down the wire.
Any further discussion on the motion to refer? Hearing none, we'll take a vote on the motion to refer to the Finance and Personnel Committee. Roll call, please.
Mr. Martin?
Nay.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yay.
Mr. Roberts? Nay. Mr. Gates?
Yay.
I will vote yea to break the tie. So resolution numbers, the motion to refer to the Finance and Personnel Committee, that motion passes.
resolution number 67, 2021, authorizing the mayor as Director of Public Service to prepare and submit an application to participate in the Ohio Public Works Commission state capital improvement and/or local transportation improvement programs, and to execute contracts as required for the City of Shelby Broadway sanitary sewer replacement project.
Move the resolution be taken up and passed.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Gates and a second by Mr. Roberts for the passage of resolution number 67, 2021. Discussion? Mr. Tice.
This is our annual Iowa Public Works application. Been talking with our administration and our service department. This section of sewer that runs behind the houses on Broadway between Whitney and Smiley. 100 years old, very flat. They have to go in there and jet it all the time, and it's very difficult because of its age and so forth. So this rose to the top of the ones what the crews felt was the most important to get it fixed. Total cost $328,800. This grant would do 50% of that, or $164,400.
Any further discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Martin?
Yay.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yay.
Mr. Roberts?
Yay.
Mr. Gates?
Yay.
Resolution number 67, 2021 passes. Come to miscellaneous business. Is the miscellaneous business to be brought before council this evening? Mr. Gates.
Mayor, move council adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Gates and a second by Mr. Martin for adjournment. Roll call, please.
Mr. Martin?
Yay.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yay.
Mr. Roberts?
Yay.
Mr. Gates?
Yay.
Motion passes. We adjourn at 7:26. Thank you, gentlemen.